All hazardous materials are subject to requirements contained in the Hazardous Materials Regulations, or HMR. These regulations define what a hazardous material is and how it must be prepared and handled. The classification assigned to each hazardous material will determine these requirements. They are specific to particular hazard characteristics. Course objectives include: to identify and to define hazardous materials, to identify and to explain ways that materials are classified as being hazardous, to explain the hazardous materials table, and to discuss the exceptions for limited quantities. Regulations regarding hazardous materials classification and transportation are set, maintained, and enforced by the U.S. Department of Transportation Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, or PHMSA. You will often hear PHMSA referred to simply as pipeline. The Hazardous Materials Regulations, or HMR, provide a very specific definition of what hazardous material is. Move your mouse over the easel to read the definition. The HMR classifies hazardous materials into 4 broad groups. These are: hazardous substances, hazardous waste, marine pollutants, and materials with an elevated temperature. The HMR places substances identified as being hazardous into one of 9 hazard classes. Each of the hazard classes has a number and a particular identifying sign with it. Roll your cursor over each hazard class sign to see specifics. Some classes of hazards are divided into smaller categories called divisions. The divisions group similar materials within a class and often indicate one division's degree of danger compared to the other divisions in the class. Each hazardous material is assigned to a hazard class and division based on its most obvious hazard characteristic. Criteria used to group the hazards are defined in Part 173 of the HMR. Access a breakdown of hazard classes and sections here. Hazardous materials are classified by a number based on class and division. The class number is written before the decimal point and the division number follows it. For example, Class 1, explosives, has 6 divisions that range from 1.1, the most severe, to 1.6, the least dangerous. They are: Division 1.1, explosives with mass explosion hazard. Division 1.2, explosives with projection hazard. Division 1.3, explosives with predominantly fire hazard. Division 1.4, explosives with no significant blast hazard. Division 1.5, explosives that are very insensitive or blasting agents. Division 1.6, explosives that are extremely insensitive. Game time. Click on the HAZ101 picture to start a fun matching game about the classes of hazardous materials. When you have finished playing the HAZ101 game, return to this course and click Continue to go on. As you know, ABT sells, ships, and services lead-acid batteries. These batteries contain an electrolyte made of a mixture of sulfuric acid and water. Sulfuric acid is classified by the HMR table as a Class 8, corrosive, hazardous material. So ABT is subject to DOT pipeline regulations, especially concerning packaging, labeling, and shipping requirements. The hazardous material table lists various items classified as hazardous and also specifies the special provisions that pipeline requires for their handling, labeling, and shipping. You can download a copy of the complete hazardous material table by clicking on this link, but you can also check the DOT pipeline site online. Here is the portion of the table for lead-acid batteries. You can see that they are listed as batteries, wet, filled with acid. Read across the table. It contains essential information about pipelines' requirements for identification, packing, labeling, and handling of lead-acid batteries. When you are ready, click the Continue arrow. Special identifying labels must be attached to each hazardous material when it is shipped. There are specific labels for each of the hazardous materials classes, and some classes have more than one based on the specific divisions within each. You can access the complete pipeline hazardous materials marking, labeling, and placarding guide by downloading the brochure linked here. But what you really need to know is that lead-acid batteries belong to Class 8, corrosives, of the hazardous materials table. They must be labeled and placarded with this sign. Review is always more fun when there's a game involved. Click on the HazMatch game image to launch an interactive way to help you remember the labels for hazardous materials. When you have finished playing the game, return to this course and click the red Continue arrow. This is the end of the course content for RHAZ101. If you are ready to take the final assessment, click the Ready button. You may take the test as many times as you need to, but you must get a score of at least 80%. If you would like to review the material first, click the Review the Course button.